Welcome back to News 9. Sometimes, you know, parents, it is just hard to tell if your child is running a fever. Do you know what to do? It seems like when my son was young, whenever I wouldn't take him to the doctor, they'd say, you should have taken him to the doctor. And then when I did, they were like, he's okay, he'll make it.
Keep him at home.
Oh, man.
Our question, can you relate? Because for today's segment, we're joined by OU Health's Dr. Ryan Brown to talk more about fevers and kind of your response, how high of a response it should be.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. It's near and dear to my heart, too, because I have a toddler, I have a 3-month-old, and you start to feel their skin get hot. And you can feel it as if you're around them a lot, you know they're getting warm. What's actually going on in their body when they start to get hot?
So a fever is not the disease. A fever is a response to a disease. So if a child has a virus, if they have a bacterial infection, that's their body's response to that disease process. And it can go anywhere from low grade, you hear us talk about low grade fevers to high grade fevers. And I tell parents, each kid's different. You know, I may have a kid that has a raging ear infection and they have a 101. And I have a kid that's just got just a little sniffles and they're 104. So know your kid and know how they respond.
It seems like for parents, there's so much information on the internet. It seems like that's what we all do. Oh, there's an issue, go to the internet. And it's like, and then it can scare, you know, the daylights out of you. So what is, you know, do children, are their fevers higher than what is okay for an adult? How do you know what the threshold is?
Well, everybody's different. Kids are not big adults or little adults, but adults are big babies, I always like to say. So, you know, there's a difference between a fever and a 2-month-old. So if a 2-month-old or less has a fever, that's a concern. We really want that child to be checked out. Versus if I've got a 6-year-old who has a little 102, but they're running around and climbing on the walls, that might be an okay fever. So it really depends on, one, how is the child responding to the fever? If they're still eating, drinking, acting well, that's okay. But if that fever is preventing them from being active, preventing them from eating, that's something we need to intervene and check out.
Any over-the-counter meds that parents should immediately consider, or is that kind of the step 6, 7, 8?
Well, I always say parents should have, you know, at least 2 drugs in their cabinet. Actually, in Oklahoma, 3. You need to have an antihistamine because of our allergies in Oklahoma. You need to have acetaminophen and an ibuprofen. And those are the 2 that we use for fever. We don't use aspirin. Don't use aspirin in kids less than 18 years of age, but ibuprofen and acetaminophen are the 2 meds that we use for fevers.
You know, it's kind of hard for parents, and I know, Lacey, we've talked about this with, you know, you've got, you know, Brookie, your little girl, now you've got a new baby, but when do you take your child to the emergency room? Is there like a big guideline for that? Because it seems like, you know, as a new mom, you don't want anything to go wrong. You're just nervous about everything, so help us there.
Well, you know, as an ER physician at Oklahoma Children's Hospital, you know, we see kids come in for fevers all the time, and, you know, I will never fault anybody for bringing them in. That's your concern. Let me help alleviate that fear. But like I said, if your child is 2 months of age and under, and they have a fever, and a fever for us is 100.5 or higher, or if you're in the metric, it's 38 degrees Celsius or higher. That's a concern. Let us evaluate. But really, if it's high and it's interacting with how they're eating and drinking, let us check them out, or call your local provider.
Calling your local provider is probably always just a great thing to do, right?
Right.
They can kind of walk you through
But their fevers always start on a Friday afternoon.
a Friday night at 5:05.
And nighttime. Fevers get higher at night.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Thanks for answering some of those questions for us.
We really appreciate it.